Sara Ahmed's book, The Promise of Happiness, is a critical look at how our culture treats happiness not just as a personal feeling but as a social and political demand. Instead of asking what is happiness, Ahmed asks what does happiness do? She shows how happiness is used to shape people's lives, pushing them towards certain goals and silence those who don't fit in. Happiness is not simply a natural or neutral good. It can act like a tool of power, rewarding people who follow accepted norms and punishing those who resist. Through feminist theory, queer studies, philosophy, and cultural analysis, Ahmad challenges the modern obsession with happiness and turns to unhappy archives, stories, histories, and examples of people who reject the demand to be happy as a way to rethink what kind of lives are worth living. Ahmad starts by describing a happiness turn in modern times. Self help books, positive psychology, and even governmental policies are increasingly centered on happiness. Happiness is measured through surveys and indicators, treating it like an objective fact, usually defined as feeling good. But she points out that these indicators do not come from nowhere. They usually link happiness with familiar ideals like marriage, family, or community. In other words, we are told that people are happy because they follow social norms. This creates a happiness duty where people feel pressure to pursue happiness by making the right kinds of life choices. If you don't want those things, you are seen as strange, wrong, or a problem. To challenge this idea, Ahmed turns to thinkers and activists, feminists, black scholars, and queer writers who have shown how happiness can actually serve as a cover for inequality. Simone de Beauvoir, for example, argued that happiness is often used to justify putting others in a situation that did not choose under the excuse that it is for their own good. Ahmed's method is to follow the word happiness around and notice how it attaches itself to certain objects like life, love, family, nation, and how it creates a pressure to desire them. These happiness archives also reveal what happens when people refuse to play along. One of Ahmed's strongest examples is the figure of the feminist killjoy. This is the woman who refuses to smile, who questions a happy housewife image, who points out sexism when everyone else wants to keep the peace. Feminists are often accused of making others unhappy simply because they reveal injustices that were hidden behind a mask of happiness. In the same way, black women who express anger about racism are dismissed as too negative or disruptive. But Ahmed sees this refusal to fake happiness as an important political act. To disturb false happiness is to open the possibility of something better. She also examines how happiness works in relation to sexuality and migration. Queer people, especially in earlier times, were often forced into stories with unhappy endings, like old novels where lesbian characters had to die or suffer so as not to make homosexuality attractive. These unhappy scripts taught society that queerness meant misery. Ahmad flips this around. Queer unhappiness is not proof of failure, but a reaction to a world that refuses to accept them. By embracing unhappiness, queer people can create new communities and new forms of life. Migrants are often pressured to perform happiness in order to prove they belong. In films like Bend It Like Beckham, the story suggests that young migrants should let go of their parents' unhappy traditions and embrace multicultural joy. This erases histories of racism and empire, demanding that migrants forgetful painful past in order to fit into the nation's idea of happiness. Migrants who hold on to those histories are seen as killjoys, spoiling their nationhood. Ahmad argues that happiness often acts like a full stop in ethical debates. We assume that something is good because it makes people happy. So we don't ask deeper questions about what desires are being served. She proposes instead a politics of the hap. The word hap from which happiness comes, originally meant chance or fortune. Ahmed wants us to embrace the openness of hope, uncertainty, possibility, the fact that life does not have to follow a fixed path to happiness. Her larger message is that we need the freedom to be unhappy. This does not mean seeking misery, but rather refusing to accept a happiness that hides suffering or demands conformity. Feminist, queer, and anti racist struggles may be called unhappy, but Ahmed sees them as creative movement that open new futures. True possibility comes not from obeying the scripts of happiness, but from daring to live differently, even if it makes others uncomfortable.